All right, so it's 1:15. We're going to go ahead and have our open discussion following the presentations today regarding the Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy assumption, and with the goal of making a vote and moving forward. So we do have Heather and Sherry on the phone, and I'd love to hear just reflections from our board members.
I can start it off. I thought both the proposals were actually pretty good proposals. Kind of weighing them together, I liked that the board that was going to partner with Global Education Resources, that they were ready to go and that there would not be a delay in the school opening back up, that it would open back up in the fall. And I thought that was important to me. Also, I like really their board was very impressive, and I thought it was very impressive that this board was able to come together, and that it has local people, that you've got I think of the 6 or 7 board members, 3 or 4 were from Bertie County. Then you had them from areas right around there. So you had Pitt and some of these others, other people, counties just next door.
I think somebody's
I think somebody's
having some
back
phone issues.
And so I thought that was very good. I thought their curriculum was fine.
If you're on the conference line, please put your phone on mute.
And so I think that that was good. I thought the other group also had a very good proposal. The problem that was the biggest sticking point for me was just the 1 year delay. I can't go along with the 1 year delay. I think it's just not good for the 100 and however many kids that there are at Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy, and that's kind of where I am on it. I think that in my mind the group that's going to pair with the Global Education Resources just makes more sense. Global Education Resources, the people that make up that EMO, and I thought it was really good how they put it out in their proposal, where they showed how the demographics very similar as far as economically disadvantaged students, but then you saw the amount of growth they'd been able to have. And I mentioned during the interview that of the last 6 growth scores of those 3 schools of QEA Alpha Academy and Torchlight, 5 out of the last 6 scores were exceeded growth, and I think that's pretty impressive, and shows that they know what they're doing, and when it comes to growing children, and I think that they would be a good one. And so after some more discussion and at the appropriate time, I'd have a motion, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the 1 year delay for me was a big plus, because there is so much baggage connected with that school and its reputation in Bertie County, and especially with the original proposer of the school and administrator. I think we need a year's delay to regroup, to reboot, to do the kind of work to actually bring the vendors up to date with their monies. The Charter One group had a lot deeper pockets. It actually concerned me that the Global group wanted to get going right away at the end of August. That's only 2 months away, and was non-committal about the outstanding debt. So this is an issue also for charter schools, public school choice in North Carolina. Are we not worried at all about these vendors? It didn't seem to me that Global, if they hadn't done their due diligence on the outstanding debt at all, and whereas they did seem to be a good group, my concern is that Charter One has a lot deeper pockets. They have 11,000 students in Arizona. They seem to have a wealth of experience and information. They wanted to take the year. Those kids, they're going back into Bertie County schools, where they're going to be a lot better off for 1 year than they have been for the last 3 or 4 years with Heritage Collegiate. So I'm not sure that it's doing them any harm. I think it's a wise decision to reboot with a year's delay and a year's prep and paying off the vendors and getting in the Charter One curriculum. Again, I did like the global application. I just don't think there's as well suited for the difficult circumstances that Heritage Collegiate, as it now stands, is presenting to us.
I appreciate Mr. Hawk's input on this. I first of all want to express my appreciation to both of these groups in such a short amount of time, pulling so many great resources together, getting a couple of great boards together. I hope that both of these groups will be well involved in the charter school movement going forward, no matter what we decide today. My big sticking point, Alan, where I disagree is assumption in my mind is not a new charter. I believe the second group had this idea that we are basically going to start a new charter a year down the road, and great, put in an application for a new charter, let's get it going in Bertie and many other places around the state that desperately need their expertise and their deep pockets and the great folks they have involved. But we're talking about an assumption of a current charter that's trying to meet the needs of students that are there and not putting them out on the street and saying, sorry guys, maybe we'll see you in a year and you got to go back to the traditional school system. So from that vantage point, I have to support, again, in such a short amount of time, the great work that Global did putting this together, and I'm going to support the Global Resources Group.
Yes, Ms. Kakadels?
I just want to reiterate what Mr. Mamoni had said. Thank both groups for coming in such a short amount of time, and this is not for the faint of heart. Mm-hmm. So thank you for coming forward. I was very impressed with the board of what Global Education Resources have put together. You guys have done a really good job of getting the local people involved in this issue, in this assumption. And that was just very, very impressive to me. And the fact that you have experience with a population that you're going to probably be seeing at this school, and that you've done a great job with that population. So, and I too agree with the idea. I don't want a year to go by with these parents not having any place to go. I think that's important, even if it's not full what you would like to see in the year after that. At least make sure these families have some place to go this September. I do hope, because I've heard of Charter One and I've seen what you've done in Arizona, I hope they'll come back and do an application and come to North Carolina. I think that would be great for them to be here. But with that said, I think I too am going to support the first one that presented Global Resources. I would say that and we didn't really talk about this when they did the interview. I think a name change would be really, really good for the school, so that people in the area know that there's new leadership, there's new people in town.
All right. Any other comments? And I know we have some folks on the phone if you want to add anything.
Hi,
Any questions for the board?
Would like to support the Global Group. I think the diversity of their board is an important piece to look at in terms of finance, and then the data speaks for itself with some of their other schools. And I just think that they're, and the other piece that has been mentioned already by other board members, having a one-year delay, not having a school choice in that area, in an area that it's needed for 1 year, I think is a big deal. So I think being able to transition this for the whole charter school movement right away and give them that option this upcoming year is what's best.
And I concur with what Heather said. Again, I thank both groups for their applications I'm glad that we had groups that were interested in an assumption, and I would just really like for the school to continue in the fall if it's at all possible.
All right, I believe Stephen has a motion he'd like to make.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move that the Charter School Advisory Board recommends to the State Board of Education that the charter currently held by Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy be assumed by a nonprofit corporation to be formed by the board chaired by Tuesday Sauer, that will be partnering with Global Education Resources LLC as an EMO. I further move that this assumption be with the condition that the school is operated as a college preparatory school. And I further move that the charter of Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy be modified to expire June 30th, 2022. So that would add 3 years to the charter so that the new group that assumes it will not come in and instantly go into the renewal process, because the charter currently expires June 30th, 2019. So that adds 3 years to the charter. So we'll get 4 years of data for renewal.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a major concern that there's not enough separation between this existing expiration of a school year and the beginning of another school year. There's so much baggage surrounding this school that I think it's going to be difficult for even an outfit like Torchlight and Global to shake a lot of that baggage. And the other issue is the vendors. Global was totally non-committal. They didn't even know what the outstanding debt was. And the other application, Charter One, was ready to take on all that debt and take care of the vendors. This is going to hurt the reputation of charter schools if Global comes in and just says we don't want anything to do with the classroom, the mobile classrooms, or whatever is going on. So again, I cannot support this Global. It's a good application. I'll give you that, but I think there are other considerations that we need to take into account here. The separation that needs to take place between the end of this school year and the beginning of another school year, and all the work that needs to be done, the repair work in the community, and then the vendors. Somehow, it may not be a legal issue that's pertinent to the State Board of Education, but I'm very concerned about vendors getting stiffed by a charter school.
Any response?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, what we've talked about for a while now, ever since assumption's been approved by the legislature. We realize this is a very difficult process. It is not easy to take over a failing school, but we knew that from the get-go, the way this legislation was approved. We have an opportunity here, I believe, to set up a model that says, yes, this can be done. Here's a group that has had great success with this particular population and is willing to take on that challenge. Of course, we can't speak for the board. We can't renegotiate contracts, but I think we all hope and expect that they will do the right thing by all those vendors and the groups that are involved in that school, because they too understand they're a significant part of this charter movement, and any stain that they put on the charter school movement because of the actions they take will reflect on their other schools and all of us. So I fully expect that they're very aware of how delicate, how difficult this is, and greatly appreciate that they're willing to take that step and take it on.
And I'll just jump onto that. I don't think I guess my concern is not so much the vendor as it is to have a quality education there. Vendors know, anytime you're going into business, when you go into business and you're entering a contract with a charter that has a 5-year charter, and you know that charter could be revoked if certain things happen, if we select neither of these groups, then the charter ends and the vendors get zero. I don't know how. I guess I'm not going to allow the vendor stuff to play a lot into my mind. I think that'll work itself out, and I think it's really something that should be worked out between the private companies that are the vendors, and then the 501c3 that is a private group. They're not a government agency, and I really just don't know if we have the authority. The assets move with the charter, they're transferred, but statute's silent when it talks about the liabilities. And so, I don't know if it's really I'm not going to try to take that into account and just say that people can work it out in the marketplace. And they'll work it out. If they want the mobile units, they can work it out where they can find out however much they need to pay to keep the mobile units, however much they need to pay to get things out of arrearages, whatever it is. And I guess I'm not going to take away a good educational opportunity for a year from 100 and something students just to kind of reboot and rebrand. I would prefer. I think you can reboot and rebrand over the summer, and I think, especially with the board that you've got here, board members that are very active in the community, and I think they can. I think they come in and they can reboot and rebrand just right away and get this thing going. And I just don't see a need to drop off and wait another year. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, I think charter, just on the due diligence kind of side of things, I think, if I remember correctly, I think Charter Success Partners may have done some of the financial work for Heritage Collegiate Leadership, so it would make sense that they would know a little bit more about the finances than another group coming in that may have never had any access to any of that kind of information.
I would also, I'm going to support the motion. One thing that I was looking at was just the combined fund balances of the schools that are part of the global contingent, and I'm not sure how that, how they would be able to, given their new entity, how that would, work. But those schools combined have, $5.5 million in combined fund balance available. Now, again, that would be part of their management agreement about how they could. I don't know if they could actually use that, but they could leverage it from a kind of whether it's to take on some new debt at a low rate. I'm sure a lender would be supportive, given that type of capital that they have or cash that they have on hand. I also think it's all public record, all in the documents. So I think we're looking at what we believe to be a total debt and liabilities around 600,000. 3 to 5 to 6. We're not entirely sure. My sense is that if they, should they dig into this and look at it and want to move forward with this assumption, they're going to find a way to solve that problem pretty quickly. It's particularly with the experience that they have in the variety of school sites that they've worked, and I think they'll be able to figure out how to solve that for that debt and liability and get down to work as quickly as possible and getting new kids in the building, retaining kids that are already there.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, I think the whole reason we're here is really for the kids, and I think it's in the best interest of the students to keep the school going and not delay a year. It's all about the kids.
Last thing I want to say about it is I appreciate, Mr. Hawks, that you brought those concerns up while the groups were here, because I think it's important for them to reflect on this idea of their persona of what the charter school movement's going to look like based on the decisions that they make as a board. So I really appreciate that you brought those concerns up. I think they've heard it, and I believe they're going to do the right thing by that school, by those vendors, by everyone involved.
Yeah, and I also want to echo everyone's comments about, excited that we had 2 strong applications that we're here having this dialogue and debate. That was not the case when we were looking at community charter, so this is kind of the second time in 2 years that we've been through this and have improved dramatically. I think it's a good thing for the state for us to be able to try to address when we have a school that is potentially looking at closure. Assumption is a possibility. I'm hoping that this will be something that we look back on and when we, in the future, we see a successful school, and this was a great outcome. So I'm excited that we're even in a position to have this, and that we have people that are willing, board members and folks from Charter One as well as Charter Success, willing to step up and say, hey, we want to put an intense amount of work forward, because that's what this would be, to try to keep the school open and keep the doors open in a county that much needs a charter school in our state. So I'm excited about that. All right, if there's no more discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Stephen's motion to move forward?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
You gonna call for the opposition?
Yeah, I'm just waiting on these guys on the phone. I think that was Heather. Sherry, did you vote?
I said aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so we have the folks on the phone as well, and all opposed. Mr. Hawks.
Contrarian.
Yeah.
I do want to thank my colleagues. I think with this vote, I've regained my title as board contrarian, if not board curmudgeon.
But I'm driving home.
You have to hear it, right?
Glad to have everything in their proper place again.
I'm over here, so I'm driving back.
Okay. So I think next steps, we'll ask the global team and their board to get in immediate contact with the Office of Charter Schools to answer any questions that you might have, and then the state board will be on the, either myself and Stephen or the Office of Charter Schools will be on the call to field any questions from the state board. I believe you said Thursday. I think it's Wednesday. They do know that this is coming and are expecting to vote. Great, thank you all.
Congratulations and thank
Congrats.
you both.
Now your work begins.
You have our sympathy.
But it wasn't unanimous.
Guess we need to take a break because these folks are set to call in at the exact time. Is that right?
Oh, yikes. That's good.
Let's do that.
Quickest we can go would be good.
Are they don't start calling until 2:10?
2:10.
Okay.
It's not easy, Tiffany,
yeah.
being the lone wolf.
Just 20 till. We'll move it right along.
This is good. This is exciting.
That's amazing.
Gwendolyn. Think about when we were in the mediation that we'd be at this place for around 9 o'clock in the morning. When it was 9 o'clock in the morning. It's exciting. We didn't think we were going to be at this spot. Did we?
That's right, Alex. Make it,
Not at all.
you know, don't make it close. Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what global will do.
This is innovative. It's exciting to.
Well, you knew probably you were gonna be the only one. I think you do these things on purpose. I think you do these things on purpose. Nah, I'm kidding.
That's exciting.
I think you have a point, but you just don't want to send your kids back to the school that they don't wanna go to. These people will come, these people will come around.
You seem sharp.
But anyway, you get things going.
Global now?
You get everybody on that line.
We just got multiple clients.
He's a consultant.
I hope they
There's
do
good
a good
things
job.
about it, there's good things about
Oh,
that
yeah,
road.
of course.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I acknowledge it.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Dr. Williams is going to present us with our RTO, and then I guess we'll be we can maybe take a break before we have our first call, because they're not gonna call in until 2:10, is that right?
Right.
Okay, so why don't we can do Dr. Williams' presentation, have time to take questions, and then take a break if necessary.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am going to spend the next few moments sharing with you an update on the schools that are scheduled to open in 2018. As of today, we have 13 schools that are scheduled to open, and I will share a little more about each of them in a moment. But before I do that, I'd like to just bring to the forefront the guidelines that the CSAB selected regarding RTO decision-making a couple of years ago. And so the schools that will be participating in the meeting today have not met at least one of these minimum standards that you have decided are important for them demonstrating their readiness to open. So, starting off with enrollment, the standard is that they had 75% of their projected enrollment by June 1st. And we'll look at the enrollment report in a moment. For their facility, that they've had substantial progress towards getting a certificate of occupancy. That means a firm date of completion and also a scheduled date for final inspection. And also for the facility that they have a valid contingency plan in place, which means that they can still operate if they have to go into their contingent location. They can still operate consistent with their mission. For the budget, that they have a valid break-even budget by June 1st. And so in a moment, we will also look at the break-even number for each of these schools, and you will be able to see how their current enrollment matches up with, or how close it is to their break-even number. And then finally, for the RTO progress report, you will recall there are 13 categories that they are responsible for and several evidences in each of those categories. And so the Office of Charter Schools has reviewed all of the items related to operations and governance. The Exceptional Children's Division has reviewed all of the items related to EC. And so the standard here was that they would have no insufficient rating in any of those 13 categories, that their rating would either be emerging or quality. Are there any questions about those guidelines?
One quick question about the EC piece. If they didn't meet the specification for EC, is that predominantly because they haven't yet hired an EC teacher, or are there other elements to that?
There are many other elements. It's only in a couple of cases that they have not identified their EC director or coordinator yet.
Thank you.
Any other questions about those guidelines? Yes, ma'am.
Do the boards get a copy of the evidence checklist? I mean, they get a copy of what you gave us on what they're looking for your ready to open status.
Yes, ma'am. They get a copy of everything that I have provided to you, except for the enrollment summary and the RTO progress report, those two documents, but everything else that's on eBoard, they have received.
Okay.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, the next thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the enrollment summary. I'll give you a moment to locate that. So, with the enrollment summary, you will note as you're looking through it that there were 4 schools out of the 13 who did not meet the 75% enrollment expectation. What you are looking at in the May-June report column are actual enrollments. You may recall in the March and April enrollment reports, I provided the number of applications that the school had received as of those dates. But now we are turning the tide to looking at how many completed enrollment reports the schools have received. And so you will see that Apprentice Academy High School of North Carolina is at 23%. East Voyager Academy of Charlotte is at 52%. SMA Kaiser Fox Charter School is at 57%. And Global Achiever School is at 27%. And you can feel free to ask them any questions when it's their turn on the call this afternoon regarding what they are doing to increase their enrollment and get closer to their projected max, which you see their projected max is in the year one projected enrollment column. The last column before the notes is the break-even number. So this is the number that the schools have selected as the minimum number of students that they can enroll and still remain financially viable. So you will see that some of them are close to that number, some of them have exceeded that number, but others of them, and namely the 4 schools that I just named, are far from that number. In this enrollment report, you will also see the schools that have requested a 1-year delay and are scheduled to open in 2019, and the 3 schools that have relinquished their charter on the last page of this report. The next enrollment report from the 13 schools is due on July 9th, and that report will also include a facility update. So I'm going to pause here and take any questions that you may have about the enrollment summary.
One more clarification on the break-even number. Is that from the original charter, or is that as of the June adjusted new budget?
So this could be from their original charter when they originally wrote their application. It could also be as they have been working in the planning year on their budget and seeing how much things really cost and how much money they're really going to have. They could have changed that number as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me on the 1-year delay, and if you don't have the information now, that's fine, how many of those 1-year delay they're saying is due to facilities?
For all of them, it's due to facilities except for Anson Charter Academy, and for them, it's due to enrollment.
And then the ones that have relinquished, the 3 that were relinquished, is it facility also there?
For Cardinal Charter Academy at Nightdale and Montcross Charter Academy, facility was the primary issue that they relinquished.
Right.
For the Padilla Academy, the governing board did not feel comfortable moving forward when the primary school leader that had essentially written the application had decided to no longer be involved with the school.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Williams, there isn't much information about global achievers in the notes. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that? In my conversations with them, what they have shared so far, and please feel free to ask them for more information on the call this afternoon, but what they've shared so far is because of their location, being in a rural area, it has been difficult for them to maintain contact with parents. So they started really earnestly in May trying to get enrollment reports and are continuing to plan activities to try to get those, or not enrollment reports, but enrollment packets, trying to get enrollment packets in from their students. Okay.
Do we know if Global Achievers was a year-round or?
They are a year-round. They are slated to start school on July 30th.
Has anybody ever looked, I'm just curious as to how, I mean, the 2 examples we have of NHA, the Johnston Charter Academy has 296 student wait list in kindergarten, and Rollsville has 319 student wait list in kindergarten. Anybody ever kind of studied how they market the school? Are they putting that much more money into the marketing? I mean, because then we got on the other side, where, there's schools that are at 23% and 27%, when you've got another one that, has a wait list in kindergarten higher than the actual enrollment of some of the other schools on the list. I guess, has anybody ever looked at like how they, what marketing they do that's effective, where if it is that effective that it could maybe be part of the training process?
We haven't looked at it carefully, but what we do know about their enrollment process and their marketing, first of all, both of these schools have already had a year delay, so they've had an extra year over most of these schools to build up interest in the schools. In addition, the enrollment team is an NHA team, so whereas for most of these schools that aren't affiliated with EMOs, that the board is having to do it basically on its own. For Roseville and Johnston's board, there is a team dedicated to those efforts from NHA, and the board does not have to carry as much responsibility as the other boards do.
So they have mercenaries.
To a degree.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I think it's interesting, and maybe it goes to a point, and this is, I know, a policy discussion that has nothing to do with RTO, but it does kind of have to do with RTO, where we've talked about, startup grants and things like that, so that, a mom and pop school would be able to start up like that. That's one of the things I think a lot of people team up with Team CFA, because Team CFA is like, we'll hire your school administrator for your RTO year. For your ready to open year, you're going to have an administrator, and you're going to have somebody that's paid, that's working for you right away. And a lot of mom and pops, they just don't have that opportunity. And I don't use mom and pop in a pejorative sense at all. I think that's some of the greatest charter schools we have. But it's just, it's more difficult on them opening up. And so maybe down the road, something will happen as far as startup funds down the road. But that's building that has multiple pyramids on it. We'll have to make that.
Is there an update on the national application, the federal application? No news?
No, we should know something normally somewhere late August, early September.
Are there any other questions about the enrollment summary?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I'd like to go next to the RTO progress report. So on this document, as I mentioned, there are 13 schools scheduled to open, and 8 of the 13 had at least one issue that rose to the level of needing to be brought to your attention based upon your agreed-upon guidelines for RTO decision-making. So you will see in the far right column, the very last column, what the names of the categories are based on the RTO evidence checklist. For each of the 8, you also have, and it's posted on eBoard as well, a digital copy of their EC evaluation and or their OCS evaluation. So if their issues or their insufficient rating was only in EC, then you will only have an EC evaluation for them. You will not have an OCS evaluation. If their insufficient ratings were only from the OCS items, you will only have an OCS evaluation for them. You will not have the EC evaluation. But if they had issues, insufficient areas on both, then you will have both evaluations for them. In addition, you have a blank copy of the RTO evidence checklist that was due from each school on May 25th. 5 schools were rated insufficient for EC. And so Ms. Ginger Cash and Dr. Rob McGowitt from the EC division are here, or will be here if they're not already, are here to answer questions as we get to those schools that are affected. There were also 5 schools rated insufficient for their progress towards being full members of the National School Lunch Program. So Jacqueline McGowan from the School Nutrition Services Office will be here to answer questions regarding those schools, should you have them, when we get to them. When we are done this afternoon, I would ask the board to consider a motion reflecting a recommendation to the state board to continue for each of these schools to continue their progress towards opening or to delay their opening based on the desire of the board. So we are now about 15 minutes ahead of schedule before the first school is due to call in. Mr. Quigley, how would you like to proceed? And maybe I should ask first, are there any questions about this RTO progress report summary that you have?
It's very thorough.
If I could ask, what's the enrollment at Next Generation?
At Next Generation, they are at
231.
77%. They have 231 completed enrollment packets out of their projected 300 students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Dr. Williams?
Based on your interactions, who rises to the top for you as you're most concerned about?
Right now, I am very concerned about apprentice academies and Global Achiever Schools enrollment. East Voyager, in my conversations with them, while they acknowledge that their enrollment is not reaching the 75% that we expect, they, I'm sure, will tell you this afternoon that they have budgeted very conservatively, and so they will be fine financially, even if the number of students that they have so far is the number that they end up with, because they have 188 completed enrollment packets. Their break-even number is 140, and so they feel very confident about that. I was fairly concerned a few days ago about Essie Mae Kaiser Fox Charter School because they did not start accepting their enrollment reports until June 4th. They were waiting to hear a decision from the Board of Aldermen in East Spencer. They have received a favorable decision regarding their facility, and so then they felt comfortable moving forward with actually accepting enrollment packets. And just in a matter of 3 days, they've gone from having 0 enrollment packets to now, the number that I reported here was 85, but I think as of today they may be at 92. So they're getting closer to their break-even number and closer to their projected max. You know, there's always a concern when you have a school that has multiple areas of insufficient ratings, and that can signify the quality and effort that's put into the work that's required. But these schools will have an opportunity to resubmit any items that we have deemed emerging or insufficient, and so I would expect to see when they resubmit in July an improvement in all of the schools, for all of the schools.
Dr. Williams, can you give the board a little update on Apprentice Academy's facility change?
Yes, so Apprentice Academy, I believe when I was not here for their actual conversations with you all during their interview process, but it is my understanding that they had identified a facility that they were going to go into, and they were all set to do it, all set to lease that facility, and somehow, somewhere in the process, that facility that they were going to lease was sold to another charter school, and I don't know which charter school, but they very quickly rounded the troops and was able to find another facility. It's actually the church where Union Day Charter School or Union Day School started or moved into after its initial opening a couple of years ago. And so they have already signed the lease with the church, and they are on target to get their final inspections sometime this month. June 15th is the date there. But this facility is, I believe, 8 miles from the original facility. And so as you are aware, according to the amendment policy that the state board has, if a school moves beyond 5 miles from its original location, they must submit an amendment request to do so. And as of today, they have not yet done that. They are aware that they need to do so, but have not yet done it. So that may be something that you want to ask them about this afternoon.
We're talking about a high school apprentice program in a church.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, when you said the facility fell through and everything, you know what the first thing that popped in my mind was entrepreneur.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what happened. It was the same kind of model, and it was, oops, we got to move to a different location, and then you couldn't get the equipment where you needed it. I don't know. They may want to. I guess we're going to talk to them at 3:20, save them for the end, but they may really want to consider
Your application,
a 1 year delay.
Yes. They were gonna do their stuff.
this was an accelerated application too, if you remember.
It was an accelerated, right.
So they did have a board meeting last Wednesday, and they were the basic. I haven't seen the minutes from the meeting, but from talking to the principal after the meeting, their basic reason for having the meeting was to decide whether or not they should continue on as planned or request a delay. And they felt, the board felt strongly at that time that they should continue on as planned.
Is anybody else up here accelerated besides Apprentice?
Mountain Island Day Community Charter School was also accelerated.
School though.
Is this like the last opportunity that we have as a board to decide whether we want to delay the openings of some of these schools?
Yes, ma'am, because this will go to the state board at its July meeting based upon your recommendation.
Does Apprentice want to? Are they seriously thinking about delay?
It was an option on the table, but after their board meeting last week, they have decided they'd like to move forward.
Because I know just with Apprentice, just one of the issues too is the local LEA, magnet school, CATA, they haven't announced their lottery and who's going to that school yet.
Right, and they have identified that issue as one that may be impacting their enrollment. They feel like once the magnet school announces who it's going to enroll, then they will be able to pull some students who were intending to go to the magnet school that have been denied enrollment there.
Wow. Talk about down to the wire.
Now, is that a year-round school also?
No, ma'am. They are planning to start on August 13th.
August 13th, okay.
Okay. Well, let's take. Unless anyone has any other questions, we can take a quick 5-minute break. But we are going to start right at 2:10 because Raleigh Oak is going to call into the conference line right at that time, and we're prepared to ask questions for them. Because we've done that rather than require everyone to come in physically this year. Good? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Williams. We appreciate it.
Yeah, like that. Get another brownie.
And you're sticking around, obviously,
Yes.
for any follow-ups. it looks like the main issue right now is EC. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do you want to give us is there any additional detail there? Or I'm looking at
You gotta refill your bottle, hadn't you?
their progress check. Is that where we should be looking for
Yes.
to see any issues?
Yes, please look at the progress check for Raleigh Oak Charter School, and you'll see all of the areas within the EC components that the school was marked insufficient.
Okay. Does someone from the Raleigh Oak School who's here want to comment on why we have so many insufficient items in the?
Can you hear me?
You'll have to speak into the mic. Oh yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, that'll work. Is that one on?
I don't think they actually amplify.
Yeah.
I think you need to stand at the podium because it's recording.
Claire Porter, Raleigh Oak Charter School. I'm the administrative director and one of the co-principals. With me today is Crystal McNamee, our EC coordinator and EC teacher, as well as Larissa Cortez, co-principal and education director. We'd like to address the deficiencies in the Ready to Open template with you. Primarily, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today to flesh out with you what will be a very comprehensive and robust EC program at our school. We recognize that we're a public charter. We provide FAPE in the least restrictive environment, and we will acknowledge that we did have a few documents that didn't make it to the upload in the RTO round 2, so the spring upload, and so we want to rectify that. I'll tell you immediately that we do have both PD for our exceptional children coordinator teacher fleshed out. That calendar is in place. We also have PD for our general education teachers. They will be getting that along with class rosters with their IEPs and their specific student needs prior to the start of school. We have gone back and written a homebound policy, so we will be addressing homebound and the need for homebound. We've also gone back, we had put into place an MTSS, a multi-tiered system of supports. We've fleshed that out in response to your comments. So support structures for struggling students has been written and is ready to be submitted as well. I spoke already to the continuum of services in the least restrictive environment, which we will offer at Raleigh Oak Charter School, as with any public charter. We've also broken our currently known IEP, our exceptional children, into separate setting, resource, and general, and they will be served as per each of their IEP goals in those settings. With respect to the accountability and promotion and retention of exceptional children, we've added that to our accountability policy, and that has been done and is ready for submission to you. And child fine language has been added to the original submission for child fine, so that we've answered your query about what if a child is presenting prior to a Tier 3 intervention, and who, in addition to teachers, can also make a submission under child fine, a parent or a community member, anyone who has a consideration that the child may need exceptional services, exceptional children's services. So we've also made corrections to that. And with respect to the specific stream training, I, Claire Porter, attended the DPI session and was able to listen and learn from the training provided by Lori Peterson on December 2017 as part of our Ready to Open. Crystal McNamee has also attended multiple multi-stream training. She's attended the PRC 32, State Aid, PRC 63, 36, 118, and 114. So we've created a document that shows you not only what has been attended in the past, but what will be attended in the future. So she is a very seasoned EC coordinator, understands those funding streams, understands how to apply for grants. And so I will let you all speak a little further to that. Is there anything else on the template that I can answer for you specifically?
Do you have any idea how many EC students you expect to have?
Yes, sir, we do, and it presently is about 9% of our student population, and a specific count would be 25, with at least 2 separate settings that we know of, 1 resource, and the remainder in the general population.
So you'll have 2 separate setting teachers?
Would you like to address that? Yep, sure.
Good afternoon, my name is Crystal McNamee. So in regards to the separate setting right now, we are in the process of seeking out for additional TA, but in the meantime, we have structured the schedule, so to speak, so that the students in separate will be receiving the amount of services that they need, along with the resource student who needs their setting as well, and then the remaining after.
Any questions on any of this?
Anyone from the EC department have any follow-up they'd like to give us on their work with Raleigh Oak?
So I am Ginger Cash. I'm an intervention consultant for charter schools out of the Exceptional Children's Division, and we reviewed their evidences, and based on what they have shared, we will review what they were going to add to it. The only one that I didn't hear you mention was just how you were going to make the EC policy manual and also the parent handbook available, and I'm sure that may be part of it, but that's the only one I didn't hear you mention.
That was also unfortunately something that did not make it in the RTO template. What we will do is we will certainly have on the premises the handbooks and the procedural safeguards for parents. We will also have this electronically linked on our website. It will be in every IEP. It will be in the signature block of the EC coordinator's outgoing email, and it will be available in multiple areas in the building. Again, it's linked in our handbook. It's physically available to our parents, and it will be provided this summer to those incoming families who have exceptional children, so that they are fully aware of the rights and the responsibilities.
Mr. Chair, I move that Raleigh Oak Charter School continue in the ready to open process.
Second.
If they just work together with OCS to get everything ironed out on this EC stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll second that. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? All in favor? On the phone?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Aye.
Thanks for coming in. Best of luck.
Good job.
Mr. Quigley, the next school that should be calling in is Next Generation Academy. They had two areas with insufficient ratings, board governance and lunch program. And you will see for them within your documents a June progress check and the comments that were made regarding board governance and regarding the lunch program. Should you have questions about the lunch program, please feel free to call on Ms. McGowan, who is in the audience and representing School Nutrition Services today.
Okay. Is there anybody on the line from Next Generation? Okay. I'm sure they'll call in at some point.
There you go.
Somebody.
Is it,
Hello, this is Dr. Rhodes, board chair for Next Generation Academy, and I have with me this week's Dr. Misher. This is Dr. Rhodes, chair for Next Generation Academy, and I have with me and Mr. Brian McKnight is with me also.
It's a wicked echo. Okay. So we just picked up your evaluation, and my question, I'm interested in the platinum member as well. It seems like.
Okay.
What could you elaborate more on what it means to be a platinum member, and does it come with first class status?
The idea
Get
that
free upgrade.
Getting the school in shape, we had community sponsors, and we had various levels, and in terms of external fundraising, and the reference to the platinum member that you would have seen in the minutes was that the board had a discussion about what contribution the board would make. And as a board, we agreed that as a group, we would also contribute $5,000, which is equivalent to what a platinum sponsor would be. But we're not doing any of the perks or anything that goes along with that sponsorship. That was just kind of identifying the contribution of our board. So that's kind of a misunderstanding there, but that's where that came from, because the 5,000 is the same amount.
Okay, so
fundraising.
So it's basically just a fundraising status.
Yes.
Okay.
What's the issue with the lunch program?
Okay. That's fine. Any other questions on the board governance? Is Mr. Misher? Has he resigned and from the board and at this point, and is the Mr. Rhodes, sounds like you're the board chair now.
Yes, I am the board chair. Dr. Misher has stepped down and he is functioning as executive director.
Great.
Now.
Okay, great.
Y'all just have to make sure that you get your stuff in the minutes when y'all do stuff, and realize that the board has to do a lot of these things. When somebody gets hired, the board has to hire them. It has to go in the minutes. When you hire an executive director, when you hire a teacher, when you hire anybody you hire, anything you do, it needs to be in the minutes to make sure that you're complying not only with what North Carolina requires of charter schools, but also if the IRS ever started looking at it, you don't want to lose your tax exempt status, and they want you to follow everything down to the line. So I just encourage y'all to do that. None of this is stuff you can't fix, but you just got to make sure going down the road on the governance stuff that you take good minutes.
Absolutely. We understand.
Hire a good lawyer. They'll help.
Let's talk about the lunch program.
Okay.
It says that the progress has not been made sufficiently towards being part of the NSLP. Could you give us an update on that?
Sure. Actually, Dr. Misher, my executive director, is actually working on that recently, so I'm going to let him tell you the status of that.
Yes, this is Dr. Misher. And when we've had to submit our lunch information, we had submitted it out to bid, and we had not received the bid back. And since then, we have chosen the vendor. And in talking with the nutritional specialist from the DPI, our vendor was chosen because they had experience as a cafeteria manager in a public school system. And so, and then they know about the different components of a meal. And so I reached out to DPI this morning, our specialist. So we're next going through the next step, which is the menu certification process. And then once we get the menu certification process taken care of, now that we have the vendor identified, then we'll be able to go through the flow chart that they presented to us so that we can get everything else in place. My question to him this morning was, would we be able to have everything up and running by the time school starts? And his words were, yes, that should not be a problem, in particular since you have someone who is familiar with the various meals and meal portions and all that goes into providing that meal certification process.
Okay, great. Anything to add from the school lunch services? Or we? No.
Well, with the school lunch, we do have a vendor, and he's going to work within our he did do our budget, and in that budget, he is going to send us a full-time cafeteria manager to
Great.
manage it, and so we will have someone on site as a liaison between DPI, but that person in hand will do the meals and do all that. Our site, we cannot cook here, but we can store a lot of materials, and he has a catering business not too far from school, and so he'll deliver the meals twice a day, and the meals that we can prep here, the cafeteria manager will do that in between breakfast and lunch and after lunch and in preparation for the next day.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Misher. And I'm just going to ask for comments from the DPI.
The information that he has provided is correct. We had not made any contact with them as of April, but being that he contacted us on this morning, if they have someone in place who can carry out the rest of the application process, then it's possible. We don't know what it's going to take for them to get from here to approval, but we'll work with them to get from here until the end of the process.
Great.
So we don't know if that'll be in August. We don't know if it'll be September. It'll be once they complete all the regulations.
Okay. So just encourage, DPI is here to support you as you bring that program on board, as you know. Okay, great.
All right, I move that Next Generation Academy continue the Ready to Open process.
All right, it's properly moved and seconded. All in favor, or question?
No.
All in favor?
Ready.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
Staying on schedule. Good.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
All right, yep.
Mr. Quigley, the next school to call in should be Mountain Island Day Community Charter School. Their insufficient ratings were for exceptional children and also the lunch program. So you will have for them both of their evaluation rubrics, the progress check from EC as well as the progress check from OCS.
Understand all the EC things. There's so many of them. All right. Well, do we have anybody on the line from Mountain Island? Okay. While we're waiting.
We're early. Oh, we're early.
Yeah, we're slightly early. The folks. I'm sorry. Can you tell me your name again?
Ginger Cat.
Ginger. Could Miss Ginger? Do you have any? Have you had communication with them since this report has been filed?
Yes, submitted a few others. Do you want to speak to it? Rob was the one that reviewed them.
Is it okay if we have this conversation while they're not on the line? Right? I mean,
Yeah, they've actually sent a lot of emails, so that's a good question. My name's Rob McCowett. I work with the EC division. I'm a regional consultant for charter schools in the western half of the state. But this school has sent us a series of emails that made up from all the deficits. The only one that we did not receive anything about was an actual budget, which describes how they're going to spend their special ed funds. So that's really the only one they're short on right now.
Okay.
Tammy Winstead.
Hi, Ms. Winstead. We were just speaking. We're a little slightly ahead of schedule. We've just asked the EC team here at DPI for an update. It sounds like you all have been emailing quite a bit and have rectified the insufficient items on the EC progress check, except for the budget line items. Do you have any comments on that for EC?
On the budget line?
Yes.
I can revisit it, but I did, whenever we submitted our RTO items, I did have the breakdown of how we were going to it was just tabbed at the bottom of the Excel. My assumption is they just looked at the revenue streams that were coming in and just looked at the expenditures.
Okay, so maybe you could resend that to them, and we can take another look at that. Yeah, this is just making sure you have the money allotted in the budget to cover the special education services as well as related services, including psychological evaluations. Is that all in your budget? Have you budgeted for that?
Yes, I did.
We budgeted for educational support. We budgeted for the psychological services. Actually, had it all written down. Kind of get to my budget real quick. EC services, psychological services, contracted health care, the EC instructional supplies, and then the EC staff.
Okay. Okay, great. So please just get that out to the EC department again ASAP and work with them if there's any issues that they deem that you need to address.
Okay.
The other question was just on the lunch program. Where do things stand currently with your lunch application and program?
Hold on just 1 second. Okay, the lunch program. We reached out in October and sent the application in. We didn't hear back from them, so in January we followed up and resent the application again. And I've got evidence of all of this. We met with Flo from School Nutrition Consultant on February the 13th. Then she requested menus, which we sent her on February 23rd, and those were the weekly menus. She responded back to those on April 14th and wanted us to complete the monthly menus. The monthly menus, however, have a breakdown where we're going to need additional support doing that. Flo gave us the names for, it's a K through 12 RD menu support, and we've we've sent the information to 3 of them. 2 of them have responded back to us, and they're reviewing the menus so that we can contract them. We're still waiting to hear back from the 3rd one. We spoke to Flo again this morning, and she said that we are in the potential sponsor stage, which is generally a 6-month process, and the time frame that we're on, we're still kind of on track to be complete in August to September time frame. Outside of the menu certification, she gave us 3 other things that we could work on. What staff will put the head counts into the system, food safety certification, and where are we going to serve the food so she can come out and do a site visit. So we've got all 3 of those things in process as well.
Have you selected a vendor?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Have you selected a vendor?
A vendor, we got quotes back from 3 different ones. We pretty much narrowed in on the vendor that we were going to use, and it's one that many of the other charter schools use as well. Trying to look at the name of it real quick. I can send you the name of it. I'm sure it's going to be one that you're familiar with.
Okay, and I'm going to ask our folks from School Nutrition to come forward and share any additional details for the board.
Good afternoon again. Based off of our application process, they're still at the very beginning. Menu certification is the bulk of the requirement. It's the first thing that has to be done. It has to be done by a registered dietitian. Nutrition analysis is a big component of it based off of federal regulations. So they're at the beginning of the process. And how long it takes is dependent on the school and who they contract with. They have to competitively procure their vendor, which is also, it's a process. So they're, as far as we have them written down, they're at the beginning.
Okay. Did you hear that, Ms. Winstead?
No, I did not. It was kind of blurry.
She said that as far as DPI School Nutrition Services is concerned, you're still at the very beginning of the process. Menu certification is kind of what happens at the beginning, and I would just, and that also your vendor selection, obviously you have to competitively identify your vendor and select that person. So this seems like something that you'll have to make sure you're devoting a significant resource of time to over the next few months to make sure that you're ready to launch. And even then, do you have any thoughts on timeline? I'm talking with the school nutrition staff.
It's possible for September, October. We still haven't been, we've been on site, but we haven't received as far as where they're going to serve the food. The kind of the intricate part of the program, we still have to go on site to see how that's going to be managed.
Okay. What can the folks at Mountain Island Day do to help move this forward?
We provided them.
Hold on, I'm asking school nutrition.
We provided them
services.
with contact information for 3 registered dietitians, so they would need to pinpoint who they're going to work with. The dietitian would then be responsible for doing the menu certification part. They have to have, that individual has to have the nutrient analysis software, and then they would start with the catering contract.
Great. Are you able to hear that? I feel like I'm playing a game of
No,
telephone.
I'm not.
Okay, here's the deal. You need to call today the folks at School Nutrition Services and put a major priority on this, because there's still a number of big steps that you have, particularly around the nutrient analysis and in picking a dietitian, having someone do that for you. All that stuff can take a long time. So you're at this juncture at risk to have certified, to be able to serve when school starts. So this just needs to. This is kind of your one issue right now that is holding you back, and you need to make sure that you put a major priority on in the next month. And I would call them today or tomorrow.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there someone other than Flo that we should be speaking with?
Are you Flo?
No, I'm not. I'm Jacqueline, the compliance officer. I'm here in the Raleigh office. Flo is in the zone along with Reggie Ross. So Flo is giving them adequate information. She's walking them through. She's even copying me on the communication. They just need to follow through with what she's giving them to do.
Yep. The
Catherine Rucker?
The compliance officer here in Raleigh says that Flo is the best person because she's right there for you. So, and just she's giving you accurate information. You just need to make sure that you're following all the necessary steps. At this point, I'm going to remove myself from this game of middleman, and I'll accept a motion from
Mountain Island Day Community Charter, continue the RTO process and get their lunch plan worked out, and make sure that they fix everything up with the EC issue.
And I'll second that. I'll just make a comment too. I don't think it's unheard of that a school opens with a delay in getting their full hot lunch program started. Yeah. So if that's the worst case scenario, hopefully we'll get on it right away.
Yeah, this is not something that would prevent you from opening. It's just, it primarily becomes a monetary issue because you could even serve a lunch, you just can't get reimbursed for it. Okay, so it's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay. Aye. All right, all set, Ms. Winstead. Keep working it.
Keep working.
Get those lunches squared away.
Okay, Mr.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Quigley, the next school to call in is Moore Montessori Community School. The founder and proposed head of school is already on the line. The issues for this school are exceptional children and lunch program also.
Did they call someone this morning? It seems to be a trend. Okay, so exceptional children. Folks from Moore Montessori, we're going to ask, I'm going to ask quickly the people here from the Department of Public Instruction to comment on the status of the items in your EC evaluation.
Okay.
And so this is Ginger Cash, the intervention consultant for charter schools. They have submitted some additional ones since we have reviewed their evidences, and most of those have been emerging to quality. The only thing that still remains is their full continuum of services plan. I did not see that included, or the only thing that was mentioned was they were going to be providing inclusion services, and that's not the full continuum, so that's just a red flag for us. So just need verification that they are prepared to provide regular resource and separate setting or homebound setting as the children need or as indicated on the IEP. Other things that were not in place that I didn't find in what they resubmitted was homebound policy. I didn't see that, and also they had some corrections that need to be made to all of their EC policies related to discipline, confidentiality, accountability, and maintenance of effort. And then the last thing was just their support structures for struggling students. So there was still a few items that I did not see in the resubmission that they provided today.
But they're in communication with you?
They have sent it through Keebler, and Keebler has forwarded that on. So if they want to continue to do that, we'll be happy to review those.
Okay, so it sounds like you're making progress on the items in your EC requirements. One question was regarding the full continuum of services. Do you plan on offering the full continuum of services, or are you just doing inclusion because that would be an issue?
We are going to be able to offer the full continuum of services. One of the kind of hallmarks of Montessori is that we do have inclusive learning, and everyone has kind of an individual learning plan. And so we have brought on our exceptional child coordinator, Jane Beth Page, and she works in district and also in the Montessori setting. And so as soon as we get our student records, we'll be processing those and making decisions on the best needs for the children.
Okay, great. I think the EC department is going to want to see some of more detail in the plan written out. So, and you're just continue to communicate with them on those items. Great. And the other one was around lunch. Could you give us an update on your lunch program and kind of where you are and if you've made any progress since your last submission?
Yeah. So we're working towards the menu certification process. We're really excited about the caterer that we've identified locally, and we think that will be a healthy lunch, and it'll be an important part of the day. And right now we're working with the folks at the National School Lunch Program at DPI to just complete the paperwork. They've been really supportive, and they look forward to working with us. We also expanded our office manager position to a director of operations and sent some more funding that way. So we've been able to hire someone who'll be able to manage the paperwork required with that.
And you've selected your vendor?
We do have our vendor. We have to, at this point, the next step is the menu certification process, is my understanding.
Okay. That's something that's usually we're learning early in the timeline.
I spoke to Ms. Rucker this morning, and
are you serious?
I promise you, I spoke to her this morning.
You got
and
a lot
actually,
of calls this morning.
I did.
Yeah.
I actually told her that in order to partner with the vendor, it has to be competitively procured. So they have not started menu certification. We have not received any documents from them except for the interest form. So they may be another school that starts school without necessarily having the National School Lunch Program in place, because they're at the very beginning.
Do they have the dietitian consultants that they need to?
We have them available. Excuse me, not dietitian. We have nutrition consultants that provide them with what they, as far as walking them along the application process. But as far as I know, they do not have a registered dietitian that they have contracted with.
Is that like Jill Hively?
She is one of them. Yes.
Okay, Ms. Rucker. It sounds like you chatted with the folks here today about the school lunch, but and if you are expecting to serve, I mean, you can serve lunch, but actually receive federal funds for it. This will need to be a major priority, and just to expedite the meal certification and get the program fully set up. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Move more Montessori Community School, continuing the ready to open process, and continue to work with DPI on their EC and lunch plan issues.
All right.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second that more Montessori.
Mr. Chair? Could I ask Keebler what their enrollment is right now? I mean, this is a Montessori school in Moore County that I expected to have enrollment issues in a rural county, but it sounds like they're okay. Are they?
82.
They are okay. They have 82 of their projected 90 students enrolled, so that puts them at 91%.
Oh my goodness!
All right, so
touchy-feely.
It's been properly moved
I'm
and
happy.
seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? I'm just repeating it so that the folks on the phone can hear it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Back to work. Thank you, Ms. Rucker.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Mr. Quigley, the next school to call in is Global Achievers School. The insufficient areas for that school were student enrollment, exceptional children, transportation plan, lunch program, and policy manual. So for this school, you will see both the EC progress check and the OCS progress check.
All right. Do we want to go small to big? Start with the small things? And end with enrollment, or start with enrollment?
big things.
Enrollment is the
Might not
small
even
thing,
talk about
that's
those
one of the problems.
Okay. Okay. Do we have folks on the line from Global Achievers?
Yes. Yes, there are two representatives from Global Achievers. This is Lisa Swenson, and we have Renee Stevens.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey.
Okay. Talk to us about your enrollment.
Okay, and I'll let Renee go ahead and explain. Okay, our enrollment right now stands at 65 who've actually completed and submitted their applications. We have 21 additional students who have, shown interest, and we're in direct contact with them, and they do plan to submit their applications as well.
And those are K to 3. Do you have the breakdowns?
K through 3.
Do you?
I think Lisa may have that breakdown. Yes, I don't have that spreadsheet pulled up. Let me pull that up.
Their projection's 240.
Their break even is 150. Time to adjust down.
Three of those events.
Okay, here we go. So we have sorry, my computer's loading slowly.
The reason I asked is just because out of 65, you're not going to get 65. And particularly those kindergarten parents can be a little more fickle, unpredictable. Okay. While you're pulling that up, Renee, do you want to give us a kind of what is your explanation or theory on why the enrollment is so far below your projected year one target?
Really, I believe it's the securing of the building. A lot of people in the beginning wanted to know exactly where the school would be. So a lot of them were a little apprehensive before we secured our building, which was in the contingency process between the buyer and seller. It is an old school building, and there was just a lot in their process who we're going to lease it from, but the buyers did secure it. I mean, that even included the deed. No one could find the deed to the building for a while. So once we secured the building, which was just on May the 18th, we've seen an increase in enrollment.
Okay.
Is the facility issue resolved now? Because it still seems tenuous from what's on here.
Yeah, is the facility issue resolved?
Yes, we have actually signed the lease. The building was sold. That was completed, and we signed the lease immediately, which was May the 18th. And we've had several events. We're even going door to door in different communities, which has resulted in enrollment. We had three events just last week. We had a parents meeting, a movie night, and also like an open house Sunday. So since we've secured the building, there is a lot more interest, but I believe that was definitely the holdup. People wanted to know, exactly where their kids were going.
Have y'all given any consideration to thinking about a 1-year delay?
I did, because I know this world so so well. I did introduce that thought to the board, and then we started to discuss different strategies, which is when we started implementing going door to door to communicate to parents about the school. When we started going door to door, we found that several parents in the communities that in the target population that we want to serve don't have email addresses or access to internet, and so a lot of them hadn't heard about the school. And so as we're going door to door, we're seeing that there is a great interest. We do have a board member who is bilingual, and we're seeing that there's been a barrier there with that communication also. And so that idea of delaying a year, that wasn't something that the board wanted to do because we were starting once the building was secure, and once we started doing the door-to-door visits, we were seeing an increase in enrollment.
Are you, do you have any kind of thinking around the grade breakdowns, the number of kids per grade? Has that changed? I mean, what's your plan for adjusting this number downward? It seems unlikely at this time that you'll hit 150 or break even.
I am having issues pulling up.
Hello? Hello?
Where's the school?
I think we lost her.
Chairman, quickly, this school also has asked for to lower their enrollment, and we haven't received any documentation as far as the official request, board minutes, or anything.
It's in Nash County.
And they asked that June 5th.
When they get back on the phone, will you ask them what community? They're just doing so much in North Edge. Come on up there.
You wanted a request from
Town they're in.
240 to 200. We haven't gotten any
200?
documentation.
They're not gonna get
They're not gonna get
200.
200.
Right.
They need to adjust down to 90. That's why I'm interested in how many kids per grade.
Yeah.
They should know this, though. You should know this. Lisa knows that. You should know this. I could tell you to the day what number of kids we're thinking about next year.
Especially if you're gonna open July 30th.
Yeah, they start school. Kids come July 30th.
Oh.
Kids start
Staff
July
comes
30th.
2 weeks before that. Let's just look at their calendar.
I mean,
Plus-
I've got some
We need to get them
serious
back on the
concerns.
You got policy manual things that haven't been turned in.
I really think they need to delay a year, but I mean, we can't force them to delay a year. I mean, we can just say you're just not going to open. We can't force somebody to delay a year, can we? Not, I mean, that's really not our decision to make, you know, whether they want to delay or not, but
we can not.
But you could recommend it.
we could say they're not going to be in the RTO process anymore.
Right. I mean,
They're not going to do that.
You've got transportation, you've got lunch, and you've got
Certainly
policy.
recommend that.
Keebler, Dr. Williams, what are you, in your conversations with this team, seems like they got a lot going on here for school to start in a month and a half.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that still needs to be done in the 6 weeks that they have before school starts. I believe that they will do what needs to be done. But I don't know what to say beyond that.
You can get a policy manual done. You can get your lunch stuff worked out. You can get your EC stuff worked out. But if you're going to open up with 65 students, you're going to go bankrupt. I mean, that's my. I mean, you can't do it with 65. I mean, what's the state minimum? 85.
The state minimum is 80, and I did hear one of the board members say that they have 21 additional students in the pipeline. So if those students do come through with completing their enrollment paperwork, that'll take them up to 86.
But but we all know that's just people that are actually filling out an application and submitting it, and maybe submitting paperwork. But you have to knock off another 30% off of. you have to basically take whatever they say they're going to be at on day one, the number of applications, and cut that by 30%, and then say, okay, that's the realistic number for your 20-day ADM, because statistically, new charter schools do not open with 100% of their supposed projected. I mean, you know this. That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's no way. Like, I mean, so I think that I bet they will get a surge of applications, particularly as kids get retained and stuff like that over the next few weeks. I would feel much better if they were opening school on with everybody else on August 27th or whatever that date is. Push back the start date by a month. I feel like, okay, you got the whole summer to pull kids in.
What are the EC issues? Do we have EC issues?
Two called this morning and have resubmitted some ones since that is the trend, but there are still some ones, and like one of the big deals is about having a licensed EC teacher. I didn't see that they have made some attempts for hiring a teacher, which they may have and just hadn't submitted that yet, but that was a big breaker as far as one of the things that were insufficient, as well as other policies related to EC. I did see those in the resubmission at this point, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. Just waiting to see if there's more for them to submit.
They're still not there? Is it our phone that's the issue? I mean, the light's green. I don't know what that means.
Is anyone else still there?
Hello?
Sherry,
Sherry, are you there?
guess we should probably call back into the conference.
They're probably on it waiting for you.
Can I ask you a question, Dr. Williams?
Oh.
And I know you went through the process just a little while ago, but I just want to make sure I've got it right. When is it that the charters are actually signed?
So they had a deadline of June 4th to sign their charter agreement, and then, of course, they become effective on July 1st. And as of Friday, we were waiting on 2, I believe.
I think you have to
What do I have to
9.
dial?
You have to dial 9 first.
I did do that.
Down 9. 1.
1.
641. So has Global Achiever sent in their charter?
Yes.
Your call cannot be completed at...
Has it also been signed by the state board?
No, we are waiting to collect them all to send them to the state superintendent at one time.
Because once it's signed, then we'd have to revoke, right?
Here comes help, Alex. Right the other side. There she is.
Oh, now I got it. Okay, now it works.
Please enter your app. If you are the host, please wait, and you will be joined into the conference.
I think we're the hosts.
Please announce yourself.
Lisa Swinson.
Hey, Lisa?
Yes.
All right, we're back. Sorry, something happened
Okay.
there. Okay. I don't know if you could hear us, but we were talking about our concerns. Did you happen to find the grade breakdown of those applicants?
Oh, with that, I got distracted because you guys went away. I don't.
Okay. Well, anyways, we have some. I would say the board is concerned about, as I know you probably are, given your experience, and as you said, you know it.
Yes.
Wallace, Jonathan Pullen.
Okay, I hear the people from SE May Kaiser.
James Davis.
Okay. Yep. We're still on the one before you, so just hang on the line for a couple more minutes. So, we're feeling nervous with you having a July 30 open date, hitting a reasonable enrollment target. And I guess I'm just kind of curious about, maybe you could help us get not nervous about that. I don't know.
Okay. Well, again, what we saw when we went around to the different neighborhoods was that our target population hadn't heard about us, and when they when we are there to be able to inform them about our school, then they're interested. Like Renee said, we have 21 applications that are due to be submitted by the 15th, which is this Friday. Let me make sure I'm saying that date correct. We have informed the parents that we will come to their homes to help them fill out the application. We're in close conversation with them when we call them to find out if they're still going to submit their applications. They affirm to us that they are, and they come to our events. And so the interest is there. I just think that that the thought of a charter school and the way paperwork has to be submitted so that we can turn our numbers into the state is not something that they're familiar with at all.
Do you have a plan for a revised budget that's more realistic in terms of the number of kids you think you'll have at your first 20-day ADM?
Yes, we did. We did a revised budget at our meeting. We did 3 different budgets in which we reduced the number of teachers that we had, and so we made some cuts according to that. And we've also been able to get lots of donations because we have a great support from the community, so we don't have to buy any furniture. We've got several. We've had a lot of donations that's going to reduce a lot of things from our budget.
What numbers did you revise? What are those 3 levels of budgets? What student enrollment do you have in those adjusted budgets?
The lowest we did our break even at 150, and that was with us keeping our 2 instructional assistants, but we understand that we can also reduce those 2 positions also to reduce that number.
You could consider dropping 3rd grade too. And then,
yeah, we could.
And then you wouldn't have the specter of testing looming over you for next year.
We could change the charter though too,
maybe. Okay. Well, any adjusted, you'll have to submit something in writing, as you know, to the Office of Charter Schools to make an adjustment. How do we, board members? What are people thinking about this?
I'd say the feet's got to be held to the fire here with numbers. We got to set a date, whether it's June 30th or sooner, that you must have 100 students by this date to continue to plan opening for July 30th. I mean, that's a month away. Is that doable? And if you don't achieve that target, would you be willing to delay a year?
I'm with Joe. I think there has to be some kind of hard and fast thing on this, because we're not going to meet again before all this is, before the charter's signed. And my understanding, and unless I'm just wrong, and I'm sure Tiffany will correct me if I'm wrong, is that once the charter's signed, I mean, you'd have to revoke it at that point if they're not meeting the RTO. And I thought part of the thing, when we make our recommendations, it's a blanket that you complete the RTO process and you complete it satisfactorily. And this school's got multiple issues right now, and then has a very, very early start date, really lagging in the numbers. I'm worried that this school is not going to make it
July 5th
without a delay.
July 5th is the date that the State Board of Ed is going to vote on. so that moves that timeline up even.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
You know, we're running a little behind schedule, but I'd like to make a motion that 2 weeks from today is June 25th, Monday, that you have to have 100 committed students in enrollment to continue in the ready-to-open status. And if you don't achieve that number, that you consider, requesting a one-year delay to get all these pieces in motion and make sure we're ready to open.
I mean, I would say you either, at that point, you request the 2-year delay or the charter doesn't get signed by the superintendent. I mean, I don't think it's an option at this point. You know, I just don't want to see, every time we've seen a school that is opened up and we've given them the grace. There was one time that it worked, and it was with Piedmont Classical, but they weren't, you know, they needed adjusted down to like 150, 200, and they were able to get up to that, right? And we're not talking about, 60, a month and a half out from school opening that, we're at 60 out of 240 that we thought at the start. I think is just really low. I mean, I think it's got to be that if you can't get those numbers within 2 weeks, that either you ask for a year delay or the charter's just not getting signed. I mean, that's.
Mr. Chair, why aren't we acting right now to recommend not ready to open it?
I think that, given what they've said about the facility and the recent surge in applications, that they feel confident that they can get there. So was that a motion, Joe?
The motion is by 2 weeks from today, June 25th, you need to submit to the Office of Charter Schools proof that you have at least 100 students enrolled. And if you don't achieve that target, that you would request a 1-year delay for opening.
Okay.
Second.
We feel confident that we will have those numbers.
Great. All right. All in favor of that motion?
Second.
Do you want to any more?
Stephen seconded. Any discussion?
You did the second, and I gave it, okay.
I will withdraw my second, so Ms.
Oh, I
Gibbs can
thought
do
you,
it.
oh, I'm sorry.
We don't have time for this. All right.
Put
All in
my name
favor?
there one time today.
All in favor? Okay.
Get working out there, folks.
All right.
Got to have 100.
All opposed? All right. Yes. Okay. SE may also, Lisa, you've got some other lunch and other items that you really got to clean up as well. So busy couple weeks here. SE May Kaiser Fox.
So the issues with SE May Kaiser Fox Charter School also include student enrollment, funding documentation, and the lunch program. Members of their board are already on the line.
Okay.
They did not have any EC problems.
Does someone from SE May Kaiser want to talk to us about your enrollment and kind of where you are? We heard that the enrollment has spiked recently since the acceptance of applications. Does anyone want to give us an update on that?
Yes, this is Tina Fox Wallace. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you, kind of.
Okay, great. Hi. Our current enrollment as of today is 102.
102.
I'm sorry, 104 students. We've had 2 new enrollments today. We also have a plan to continue to canvass the community to hold enrollment events. We have recently secured a facility which has made a drastic difference in the response that we've gotten from interested parents, and that's increased our student enrollment. I'd just like to note that within 4 days we were able to enroll 99 students. No, in the 4 days we enrolled, we were at 56. We enrolled all of the balance to 104 within about 10 days.
Okay, so it sounds like enrollment is going to have continue on a serious uptick, and you've increased pretty radically in the last couple weeks since the facility and you started accepting applications. Board members, any other questions on enrollment before we ask? we definitely have a couple questions to ask about lunch in the budget.
You feel confident you'll get to your 150 number?
Absolutely.
I'll just, on the funding documentation, I think y'all need to just get that paperwork in. It looks like, you know, showing the evidence of the bank account, things like that. Negative balances, just work that budget and get it working.
Okay, and it looks like you have not done anything on the school lunch program. Tell us more about that.
Mr. McQueen is present there, and we'll defer to him to speak on that.
I don't know if you received the latest email from Nan, our secretary, and many of the items you were speaking about. She provided exhibits with evidence for bank account and the enrollment figures and the like. With respect to the free and reduced lunch program, I guess we're at the beginning stages as well. We did talk with Rick Ross, had some meetings with him set up, our regional director, and he recommended 3 vendors that supply specifically charter schools. We also have great relationship with the Rowan County School Board. We've met with Dr. Moody and her team to share some of those resources in terms of the free and reduced lunch program. So we should be on it. Our school nutrition, we do have a dietitian that works at the school, Torchlight Academy, and we'll be sharing those resources and our menu plan with them. So we'll just duplicate what we're doing for Torchlight.
So you're confident you'll be at 150 also?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. Sounds like, you know, you also are aware that you can serve lunch. It's just about the reimbursement. You know, everything's got to be lined up for you to be able to reimburse.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Years past. Yes, sir.
Hey, in an effort to keep us on
Yeah,
target,
please.
I will make that motion to beat Stephen
John
to the
Chan?
punch that SC Kaiser Fox Charter continue on ready to open status.
Second. Oh, she's second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion?
I'll get one in before it's gone.
All in favor? All right. Motion carries. All right.
Okay, the next school, we have folks on the call as well as folks here in person. Please feel free to come forward. The issue with East Voyager Academy of Charlotte, the issues are student enrollment and lunch program. However, I need to note here that East Voyager is not planning to participate in the National School Lunch Program. Our major concern for them is that they don't have a plan to feed students who cannot afford lunch. And so that's what we would like to hear more about from them.
Okay, why don't we start with that and then get going to enrollment?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dr. Tim Murphy, and I'm a new principal at East Voyager. Honestly, I think it just wasn't articulated well. We do have a plan. We have already contracted with a company that provides meals for 5 or 6 other charter schools in the Charlotte area. And as part of that agreement, they will be providing free lunches for all of those who qualify for free lunch on our enrollment packet. So we think the problem's solved. There is no problem. I just don't think maybe I articulated that well in the RTO submissions.
And you won't be participating in the school lunch program, so you'll just eat the cost for those meals.
Correct. That is correct. And actually, it's just part of their the company's contract with us that the cost will just be eaten. And they also participate, though, in the nutrition program as well. So the meals actually do still fall under the guidelines because they use the same meals they use with all the other schools.
Okay. Can you make sure that the appropriate documentation with Dr. Williams has been submitted to this effect so that this is clarified?
Yeah, so I think all we need to do is maybe just add that line to the contract and redo it. It was agreed upon, but maybe the little line wasn't there.
Okay. And you want to talk to us about enrollment?
Yes, sir. We, as of today, have topped 200. I think we're at 201 enrolled students.
Right.
And, we've budgeted on 140 students. And even with that, we could put some cuts in as well. But just to meet our overhead, we would need 140. And like I say, we're over 200, so we're roughly 32% over what we require to be able to meet our personnel cost and overhead cost, et cetera. So for us, I think for us the big problem is just the 360. Just change it to 200 and we're good to go. We're at 100%. So there's no financial issue.
Okay. So have you adjusted your kind of grade level, class breakdowns and number of classes and whatnot to accommodate a downward enrollment projection to 200?
Oh, yes, sir. We have. Actually, we have hired our teachers based on the 175 per se, so we actually may need to add a few teachers as we're moving forward. But there's no issues with that at all.
So it sounds like you've basically moved past, you are no longer looking at 365 as a target.
No, so honestly, we never did. We kind of planned as the students enrolled, and we've grown as the students enrolled. Because as you know, you never know exactly what grade levels are going to come with a startup. Obviously, our kindergarten and first grade are larger, and you would assume fourth grade would be small, but surprisingly, our fourth grade's fairly large. It's the third grade that's a little small, but that's not an issue. We're just having one class.
Okay, well, I understand that rationale, but per the charter, you're supposed to aim at starting at a specific number, and then we've based your growth on what's in that charter. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Machado, it sounds like they need to pass a board vote to create a new enrollment structure.
Well, the challenge we're going to have is their CSADM, they said it was 365, so they're going to
get paid.
They're going to get 33% of that, and if they come in at what number did you say, 200? Then obviously their second and third allotment is not going to be anywhere near what they are anticipating.
They're going to draw down half their money in their first allotment.
Yeah, and it's not a case of, well, that's all we got. It's a case of FBS being able to budget too.
With respect, sir, we might still hit 365 because just in the last week alone, we've had 22. And so the word's starting to get out, particularly now that our construction is nearing completion. And we're getting a lot more buzz. As you know, Charlotte's a big city. So to begin with, we were, a small tree in a big forest. But now it's starting to catch on. The word of mouth starting to catch on. So I don't think it's unrealistic to say that we'd hit 300.
Okay. Can the new schools do the CSADM adjustment up through June 15th, this Friday? They can't do that?
I'll have to check with FBS.
We've got to fix that because they should be the last ones that we should be planning on. I mean, they should be the final kind of. It's not stamped until after July, mid-July, when the state board approves them.
I'm sure we'll get pushback, but we can certainly try.
Hey,
that's true. The last thing on here said you were expecting your C of O this past Friday, June 8th. So is that not in place? Is that correct? Says expected June 18, your C of O for your building, your certificate of occupancy.
I'm not. It's August. It's not July.
Yes, my apologies.
And I apologize. I don't hear well, but yes, sir. It's August, and honestly, I think it'll be ahead of schedule. They're talking now August 3rd. So.
I would just say, I'm going to make a motion in a second for y'all to continue on in the ready to open process. But just make sure if you don't adjust that 365 down, just make sure when that first thing comes in, don't look like, oh boy, we got all this, because we've seen that happen before. Boom, and then it's like, oh no, we've got to run the whole we got to run 2/3 of the school year on half the budget, and so you just have to be careful with that. But I move that East Voyager Academy of Charlotte continue in the ready to open process.
Do you understand the allotment
Phyllis
process?
Seconded.
I was explaining.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We can talk to more.
Aye, yes.
We understand.
You're good.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Keep going. Get some more kitties.
All right. Back on schedule.
Mr. Quigley, the final school for you this afternoon is Apprentice Academy High School of North Carolina. There are insufficient areas were student enrollment, board governance, student accountability, key staff, exceptional children, transportation plan, and lunch program. They are also another school that is not planning to participate in the National School Lunch Program, so our major question for them is just what their plan is to provide lunch for students who cannot afford to buy one.
Is somebody on from the press?
Yeah, somebody's on.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you just the obvious question off the bat. What, are y'all considering at all doing a 1-year delay?
Did you hear that, folks from Apprentice?
Barry, are you there?
I'm here. Yes, we have not considered a 1-year delay.
I mean,
We would still like to open up this coming August.
Are they still at 52?
What's your enrollment number for today?
We're still at the same enrollment number, around 60, but we do have a plan, an intensive plan to bring those numbers up between now and the end of June.
So as of June 1st, you were at 52, and you say you're at 50 now, and you have a plan between now and the end of June. 60, do you say? Can you get anywhere near 225 students at this point?
The question was, is it realistic to get to 220 students?
Is it realistic to turn 20 students between now and the end of the month?
No, to get to 220 students.
Before you open.
We feel yes.
This is just 9th and 10th grade.
That's a long road.
What? Tell us your plan. I mean, this got to be a good plan.
Could you tell us your plan for how you're going to get there?
But was the question, can we get 120 this month or get to 225? I'm not sure I heard the question correctly.
Yeah, the question was, can you get to 225? And then the follow-up question was, what is your plan to get there?
Well, I don't know if our board chair is on the phone yet or not, but we actually talked about, we did not think we could make 225. We were looking at revising the number to 178, which was our originally our break-even number, with a new break-even number of 162.
Okay, how you going to get there?
How are you going to get there?
Okay, we'll give you that 1 second. Hold on.
Our plan right now to get there is we're going to be sending out a postcard mailer the last week in June. It's going to take that much time to get it printed and sent out. In addition to that, timed with that, we're running 3 different ads in the localized papers. There's 2 local papers with our target student population lives. And we have one of the newest board members doing a phone campaign calling all of the ones that had signed up but not yet enrolled to try to get them to actually enroll. And then that's in addition to, we've been running meet and greets for parents to come out and meet Principal Ross, and we've added online versions as well as physical versions of that.
What grades are the 60 students currently in that are enrolled?
Right now we have 38 in grade 9 and 18 in grade 10. And even in our original application, we mentioned there that we anticipated getting students from the county's 2 magnet schools of CATA and Early College. What we didn't realize was how late the lottery is. So those 2 magnet schools are not even going to hold their lottery until June 25th. And we still anticipate, and given they have hundreds of students apply, but very little that get accepted, we still anticipate being able to draw from those who do not make it into that school, given where the only public high school alternative for the county, outside of people going to private schools or Christian schools or homeschooling. And that was an original application, and we still believe that to be the case.
What about all the other issues lined up?
We have in addition to the enrollment, there's a lot of other issues in here.
Alex, the location, the amendment of the change of the location, more than 5 miles.
Yeah, one is the location has changed of the facility more than 5 miles away. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's still in the town of Waxhaw, but it's changed because the original seminary college that we were looking to lease from, there's another charter school that has purchased that building, which meant we had to find another building, and we do have the lease, the signed lease, but I do need to get to the letter for the fact that it's beyond the original 5 miles of that seminary college, but
They have not asked for an amendment
but it is
either.
in the town of Waxhaw where the application emanated from.
That's going to require an amendment to the charter. So that's something you'll have to request for the Office of Charter Schools. There also seems to be issues around transportation as well as the lunch program. Are you going to be providing free lunch?
Alex, before
Well,
we get...
no, we did not put in an application that we were going to. Well, we do have, yes. We are going to provide lunch for those students who were previously on the free and reduced lunch. Although we're not part of the free and reduced lunch program on our application, enrollment application, we asked which families previously were on the free and reduced lunch so that we can account for them. And as far as transportation, we already have a third-party transportation company that we are using to provide transportation for us. That company's name is Olympic Transportation, and they're out of the Huntersville area of the Charlotte area.
Okay, we want to circle back to this amendment.
It's supposed to be in no later than June 13th. It's got 2 days.
You have 2 days to submit the amendment for the site move with distance that exceeds 5 miles.
Okay, I shall get that in within the 2 days, yes.
And that's going to require a board vote, I
He
believe.
needs to call the office so we could walk him through that.
Yeah, you should call the Office of Charter Schools.
I'm sorry, did you say that statement again?
You should call the Office of Charter Schools after this so that they can walk you through what to do.
Okay. And I thought I heard you say the board had a vote on it. I mean, we did that earlier this year when we signed the because we signed the lease.
Okay, yeah. Well, the Office of Charter
February.
Schools, the Office of Charter Schools will tell you if there needs to be that probably will suffice, though. I just want to let them. You can talk to them about what's required and make sure you have everything you need for that amendment to the charter.
Okay.
I think our biggest concern is around enrollment.
Yes. And I don't know if our board chair or anyone else is on there wants to speak to it, but we agree it is a concern. We still believe that we can hit this the revised number of 178. And we're also at the end of the month when, like I said, after the lotteries for the 2 schools you mentioned occur, we're all prepared to come together again. And if we don't meet the number that we anticipate meeting, what our next steps would be, because we've made a lot of promises to our families and our the teachers and staff that we've hired. Not to mention, we've had a lot of corporate donations based on the opening of our school. So we are intent on getting this school open for students on August 13th.
How many staff have you committed to hiring, given that you have 56 students currently?
Well, the staff I hired, the staff we've hired so far was based on the original application number of 225, which was 9. We've held off on hiring new teachers until we get a final number. But in our revised budget, where I originally had 9, on the 178, we would be having 8 teachers instead of 9. So it's not going to be a drastic change. But
you've already hired and committed to 9. Is that what you're telling us?
That was with the number. I have not hired them all because I haven't committed to them all because of our low number. But they're in the wing to be interviewed. I just haven't. Right now, do we have more staff than 52? Obviously, we do, because I hired these staff over the course of the last couple of months, based on we thought we were going to hit our number. But if we don't, then I'm going to have conversations with folks that we've committed to and given made contract offers to if we're not successful. And that's why when you asked originally, have we considered backing off a year? No, because we are committed to getting this school open on August 13th, albeit with a reduced enrollment.
There's no shame in waiting a year, but I mean, here's what I'm thinking. If you've readjusted your budget to 178, I think, and you're counting on this to come from the magnet schools of people that did not get in those lotteries. That's where you're planning on getting that up. 75% of 178 is 133 students. Do you think it would be feasible that you would have 133 students solid with enrollment evidence by July 2nd, which would be a week after those magnet schools have their lottery?
That is what we believe. And
would you be willing to?
That is what we. I'm sorry, Jan. I don't know if you're on there as the board chair. If you want to speak to that.
Because
internally we put our drop date at July 11th.
July 2nd.
Students. So we said July 11th is our, what we call it, a go and no-go date. Now, we honestly did consider the idea, if we don't have the necessary enrollment by July 11th, then we are looking at 2019.
Yeah, because I can, well, I'll tell you right now.
Open in this August. If we don't have the enrollment, it is what it is.
Yeah, if the state board is going to make a decision on whether you have successfully completed RTO on July 5th?
July 5th.
On July 5th,
Okay.
if they're going to make that determination on July 5th, then, I say if you're not at 133 by, we'll give it, if we did it by July 2nd? July 2nd, because that makes sense. That's that Monday, and so that gives everybody time, because Wednesday is going to be a holiday. It's going to be July 4th. And so that gives everybody there that if it's not there, that the state board just say you didn't successfully complete RTO, you can either ask for a 1-year delay, or you could just turn in or we're not going to sign the charter. And I think that's the only way to do it, because, not going to let you open up with 56 students that you've got right now. You can't, it's below the minimum allowed, and it's going to bust your budget, and it's going to be, it's a bad idea. I really wish y'all would consider just doing a 1-year delay, but I'll make the motion that that Apprentice Academy High School provided the Office of Charter Schools evidence of the enrollment of 133 students by July 2nd, 2018, and if not, that they will submit a request for a 1-year delay, or otherwise, that the recommendation of this board would be that the state board find that they did not successfully complete the ready to open process and not sign their charter.
I will second that.
All right.
Mr. Chair, this is a forlorn hope. They have too far to go. It's a bridge too far.
Well, I'm going to give them that one chance, because if it is true that this magnet school, if it's going to pop them all out, then we'll know by July 2nd. If not, then either it's going to be a 1-year delay, or the school's just not going to open at all.
Well, I'm not used to voting with the majority, but I may.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed? All right, the ayes carry. We'll look for that data from you in the beginning of July. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck. Get working.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Quigley and
Yes.
other board members, thank you for your time this afternoon and your thoughts on each of these schools. This concludes the Ready to Open report for the 2018 cohort.
All right.
Thanks
Thank you for all your hard work, Dr. Williams.
Absolutely.
All right.
You know, Mr. Chair, I really thank us all for having the wisdom a few years ago to put more importance on this RTO process, because we weren't doing this like 3 or 4 years ago as rigorously as we're doing it now.
It's made a big difference.
Yes. You can see how many people called the DPI this morning when they.
It's amazing how that works.
Well, and we've mentioned before, there has not been a school that this charter school advisory board, since there was a charter school advisory board, there was a council beforehand, but this advisory board, there's not been a school that's had to be shut down. Is my recollection that this board's approved. And I think a lot of that is this RTO process has really helped, that we've made school, and we've took away the stigma, I think, of a 1-year delay, where it's not like, oh no, we're a failure because we had to do a 1-year delay. There's nothing wrong with a 1-year delay to get things right. And so I think that's been helpful too.
And
But
Dr. Williams, I want to say that the data was organized and very concise and put in order that you could follow it very well. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so let's stay on these two ones, and if they, even have some conversations about with them, even if they're close, they might want to just voluntarily hit the pause button on this. All right.
Move adjourned.
Yo,
Second.
we'll see you at the beach.
See you at the beach, yes.